Maintenant, la parole est à la salle et donc je prends les questions. Monsieur Celso Laffer, si je vois bien.
Oui. Celso Laffer, University of São Paulo, former Foreign Minister of Brazil. I'd like to raise one issue that was not specifically mentioned by all the members of the panel, even though a reference was made to some of the issues which I want to draw your attention. You, our moderator, you mentioned protectionism, jobs, the job market, and you also mentioned exchange rate. Our Japanese Otabe made a reference to peer review. Mr. Munchau now has stressed the issue of a rules-based system. I think no reference was made within this context of macroeconomic governance to the WTO and to the Doha negotiations. Now, obviously, beyond the issues of the financial crisis, there is the issue of development and the issue of trade as an engine of development and the role that the WTO and the Doha negotiations can play in this aspect. In the previous session, a reference was made to philosophers, so I will not stop by saying that Montesquieu mentioned le doux commerce and Kant in Perpetual Peace made a reference to trade as an instrument of peace. The WTO has a couple of very interesting mechanisms, starting by the fact that it decides by consensus, and it is a huge organization. It is also open to a new perception of multipolarity. We made many references to the G20, but no reference was made to the G20 within the WTO. That is an initiative of China, India, and Brazil, and that changed the decision-making process. The trade policy review mechanism, I will finish. The trade policy review mechanism is a peer review that is extremely important. In other words, and to conclude, the question I would like to pose to the panelists is what is, in their view, the role of the Doha negotiations and of the WTO?
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur, voilà, oui. Oui. Allez-y.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The debate has been very extensive and it covers so many areas. And even comparing with the last set of speakers, it was said that this is a Euro-American paradigm that is being drawn here. I wonder, although Africa has not contributed a lot to the world economy, but certainly Africa is bound to contribute to a lot of world problems. I wonder whether there is room in this attempt to have global cooperation, whether there is room to re-examine the relationship between the rest of the world and Africa and how development has progressed in Africa. Is there an exit strategy? Is there an economic stimulus that covers Africa? Is there an exit strategy that covers Africa?
Merci beaucoup. Je suis sûr qu'on aura l'occasion de revenir d'ailleurs sur votre question cet après-midi dans la session sur le futur du capitalisme. Alors j'ai pris dans l'ordre Monsieur Griffa, Monsieur Dervis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The laxist monetary policy of the United States is probably one of the it's probably at the origin of the crisis, although it's not the only one. And I don't think anything has changed, really. In spite of several G20s, we still have the same lack of mechanism in place. We have now a weak dollar. We have the development of the so-called carry trade, which is a way to use the weak dollar to invest in other emerging market currencies. And we all know that effectively, the monetary policies of all countries that have currencies pegged to the dollar is decided upon in Washington. So I would like to hear the panel's view on ways perhaps of improving, if we assume, which is my own assumption, we have different views perhaps on the topic. We're going to have the dollar as the major currency and the dominant currency for the years to come. There's no alternative to the dollar in the foreseeable future. In that sense, we should probably think about how we could better organize and govern the US dollar monetary zone.
Merci, Monsieur Gruffat. Vaste programme. Monsieur Dervis.
I would just like to draw attention to the fact that the projections, the macroeconomic projections, have been really so wrong throughout this whole cycle. I think some of you said we don't fully understand this crisis yet, and I think that may be one of the reflections. But when we look at the macroeconomic projections of OECD, IMF, of all the mainstream organizations, we see first too much optimism at the beginning, then extreme pessimism, and now all of a sudden everybody is busy ratcheting them up. Any thoughts on that? And also maybe what it means for governance. In other words, are we too centralized? Are we in the public sector in a way doing the same thing than the private sector does, a kind of herd mentality of analysis? Is there scope for greater decentralization of this process?
C'est vrai pour les acteurs gouvernementaux, peut-être pour les économistes aussi. Merci, Monsieur Dervis. Il me reste deux courtes questions. Peut-être dans le fond, une chance d'avoir des... Voilà, monsieur dans le coin là-bas. Oui. Et puis, je ne vois pas de dame, une dame, voilà, pour terminer comme Steve. Voilà, très bien.